right, so I'm Dr. Linda Cole, and I'm going to spend some time going through the budget and justifications spreadsheets with you so that you'll have a better understanding as you work through them yourself for the Module 4 assignments. And what I'm going to do in a moment is to screen share with you the set of spreadsheets that's the starting a practice spreadsheet. That being said, all of the spreadsheet selections are similar. So you have starting a practice, you have starting a birth center, starting a program, or joining a practice. So even though we will be looking through the starting a practice worksheet sets, all of the other sets that you choose will be very similar in terms of how they are organized and the steps that you go through to fill them out. So the birth center, starting a birth center worksheets are a little bit different, but not much. So if you encounter any problems with that set of spreadsheets, definitely let us know. But I think it'll be very clear and very similar to what we will be going through here. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to screen share. And I will pull up the starting a practice worksheets. So the first tab in this set of worksheets is the instructions tab. On this tab, you will find the different tabs listed that you'll be working in, some general instructions about individualizing your spreadsheets, and also the difference between justifications and assumptions, and what kind of justifications you need, etc. So that should all be clear. The next tab is the utilization tab. This tab will be where you document the kinds of visits that you'll have, whether it's patient encounters or procedures, diagnostic testing, including in-house labs, and also medications. And the reason I say in-house labs is that most clinics work with an external lab to actually run most of their lab work. So you wouldn't be billing for that because the independent lab will be billing for the services of running the labs. But if there are in-house labs, as there usually are, then you certainly can bill for those. So the first thing you'll see in the gray box is the statement of proposal. So we want you to just write a very brief statement about what your project is. So if you're starting a practice, the proposal could be something as simple as, I plan to start a primary care practice employing FNPs in rural Idaho, or something of that nature. So just explain what you're going to do, and then as you think about your numbers of encounters, procedures, etc., we want you to just put in that second gray box your rationale. How did you arrive at your numbers based on the size of your community and other data that you will have gathered? On the right in the blue boxes, and this little bar at the bottom will scroll over. On the right, you will see a menu of procedures, diagnostic testing, and medications. So we kind of want to provide that for you so that you can think about the things that might go in these various categories. So once you fill out your numbers in the utilization tab, they will populate over to the next spreadsheet. But I want to show you that you have year 1 and year 2, all right? And then you'll see at the bottom along these tabs here, you have clinic revenue year 1 and clinic revenue year 2. So whatever numbers you fill in year 1 will populate to the clinic revenue tab of year 1, and the same for year 2 in the clinic revenue tab for year 2. We do also want you to put in what your CPT codes are for your various encounters and services that you offer. So I think that should be pretty clear. We'll move on over to the clinic revenue year 1 tab, except I am going to populate some numbers here just so you can see. And I'm just going to be working with year 1, but just know that you'll do something similar in year 2. That being said, your numbers will probably be higher in terms of utilization in year 2 than year 1. Okay, in year 1, you're just getting started with a new practice. You're not going to be quite up to as much full speed as you will be in year 2. So just keep that in mind as you build your utilization numbers in. But I'm going to, for the purposes of demonstrating how these spreadsheets work, I'm going to just put in some random numbers here. So your numbers will be very different than mine, I'm quite sure. I am going to say that we are a midwifery practice. We're not a birth center, but we're a midwifery practice, and so we're going to have some global OB numbers. Other could be anything you want it to be. So you can individualize this sheet, and I'm going to say that other is home visit. And you can make another other here if you want to. So let's leave cerumen removal. Let's say that we're also going to do IUDs, and we're going to do Nexplanons. So then we have our diagnostic testing. Let me fill in numbers here first. Okay. All right, so let's say that we want to do wet preps, and we want to do hemoglobin, and we want to do pregnancy tests. Now, there may be more than 3, very likely will be more than 3 in-house lab type things that you would be doing, but we just want you to list 3. And these don't all have to be in-house labs, by the way. As a matter of fact, I'm going to change this to NSTs, okay? So as you can see over here, some of the diagnostic testing are not labs. They're other things like EKGs, NSTs, etc. So just for the purposes of demonstration, I will put those there, and let's say that we're going to do 20 of those in the first year. And hemoglobins, we will do 60. Pregnancy tests, we'll do 30. And then medications, let's say that we're going to do Rogam. We're going to do, right, so one thing to keep in mind is we're doing these 2 procedures, IUDs and Nexplanon, so we will have to have a medication device to go along with the procedure. So I'm going to, again, put IUD here and Nexplanon here. And we will have the same numbers for those. So we'll put 10 here, 12 here. I'm sorry. Rogam, we're going to say, yeah, let's leave it at 10. And then we'll have 10 IUDs to match the 10 up here and the 12 Nexplanons to match the 12 Nexplanons. Okay, so we've just populated year one utilization. And you'll see that when we click over onto the clinical revenue year one, that we have now populated, auto-populated the visits. And again, we're starting out a little slow because it's the first year. Your numbers likely will be more than mine in terms of patient encounter revenue, but this is just for demonstration purposes. So first thing I want to show you on this tab is that at the top, you'll see that there's a payer mix that we need to fill out. So we're going to need to do some research about what our payer mix will be. And after conducting that research in the community and other similar clinics, I have found that we're probably going to anticipate a 40% Medicaid, and we're going to have just, we're actually not going to have any Medicare patients. And commercial, we're going to have 50%, and self-pay will have 10%. All right. Other could be something like TRICARE. It could be publicly funded care. So maybe there's a grant that helps fund the care of some of your patients, and so that's what that would be. So the next thing after filling out our payer mix is that we need to set our charges for our visits. Again, that's going to require some research on your part, and you will likely come up with numbers that are far different than mine, but I'm just going to say that a new patient charge is going to be $250, and a return is going to be $140. A wellness visit, I'm going to say, is $160. Global OB, which would include the delivery and all the prenatal care, I'm going to say is $2,400. And other, what was our other? Nice thing is you can click back and forth from one tab to the other. Other was home visits. So I'm going to say that we're going to get $100 for a home visit. Right? So it will populate, again, here the total charges for these numbers of visits based on the charges that you set for those services. So we have to label procedure B and procedure C, and we'll do that. So we got IUDs and Nexplanons. And we've got our numbers that are populated here. Let's just go down and fill out those labels for the other things as well. NST, hemoglobin, pregnancy test. Oh. And here we had, I think, ROGAM, IUD, Nexplanons. All right, and then so we need to set the charges for all of these services. So we're going to say for cerumen removal, I have no idea what the charge is for that, but I'm just going to guess that it's something like $40. The IUD procedure itself, I'm going to say, is $400. I know that's not true. I'm going to say $120. And Nexplanon, I'll say $130. And then NSTs, we'll say $40. Hemoglobin, 12. Pregnancy test, 10. Rogam, again, these are medications. We'll say Rogam is $130. An IUD device, we're going to say is $450. The next one on, we're going to say is $350, and I have no idea whether those are correct or not. All right, so we've got our charges set. Now the next thing that we will do is we will need to do some research about reimbursements, all right, from our different payers. So we have done that research, and over on the right, you will be writing in some what we call justifications into these gray boxes about your sources. So what were your sources for figuring out reimbursement? And in particular, because sometimes it takes a bit of looking around, what were your sources for your Medicaid and Medicare reimbursements? And we want you to go beyond just an office manager. It's fine to speak to an office manager, and maybe he or she can direct you to a good source, but we want you to actually put in whatever source you use to verify the reimbursement from Medicaid and Medicare. And then we'll talk about this in just a moment. So right now, we will be saying that we did our research and we found out that a new patient that we will be, okay, so first of all, you're going to find primarily anyway, that your physician's fee, your fee schedules are going to be based on physician reimbursement. So that's why it says physician reimbursement. So we are going to say that we found out that a physician will get reimbursed for a new patient with Medicaid $200 in our state. And again, we're not taking Medicare, so we're going to skip over that. And we have found that commercial will reimburse us $230. And then for return patients, we have found that Medicaid is only going to reimburse us $60, but that commercial will reimburse us $100. Wellness is going to be 100. Again, I'm just kind of filling these in with some random numbers. And commercial will say is 140. And then global OB for Medicaid is going to be 1,800. And for commercial is 2,000. And then our other which was our home visit. We're going to say we're going to get 60 from Medicaid and 80 from commercial. Now, we also did say that we'll be having 10% self-pay. In general, your self-pay is going to be the same as what you set your charge at. So that's what I'm going to enter in here. Do keep in mind that some clinics have a self-pay discount built in that you must apply evenly across the board to everyone. So you can't give a discount of 10% to one person and 5% to another. You have to, by law, standardly apply that across the board. But I'm going to say that we don't have a self-pay discount. We're just going to charge what the charge is. So we now have a number populated here, which is our patient encounter revenue number. You'll see that that auto populates by formula. I'm going to do something very similar here that we did above and just set charges. So I'm going to say 30. All right. So we've got that, and that changes our number here even a little bit more. So the next thing that you need to do for the patient encounter revenue and the procedure revenue, because we base this off of physician fee schedules, you need to find out what your Medicare and Medicaid fee schedules are in your state, and come up with a figure that you will deduct from the physician fee schedule. And we are interested in concepts here, so it may not be mathematically quite correct the way this is going to be calculated, because it's also going to take into account commercial, which also generally does have a physician fee schedule that's higher than APRN. So do some research, find out what that is. You can take an average of what you think all of those deductions would be, and this will enter in a percentage here. So we're going to say that we did that research. We found out that overall our reduction is going to be about 12%. And so we'll populate that, and it will give us the number here. Now you do need to write over here in your justifications where you found out that information for this fee schedule reduction. And if for some reason there is no fee schedule reduction, then simply put that that's what you found and where you found it. So you won't necessarily find that there is a deduction, but most often that is the case. All right, so assumptions are things like, I am assuming that that my commercial reimbursement will be higher than Medicaid and Medicare, but lower than what my charge is, or something of that nature. So you'll put any assumptions that you can think of there that you based your information off of. All right, so I'm going to go back here just so we can have a full worksheet to work with here and populate some of these numbers. Okay, so we now have all of our numbers in the clinic revenue year one sheet that are completed. You would go about the same process in clinic revenue year two with the utilization numbers that you filled out in your utilization tab. The next sheet is our personnel expenses sheet. So you'll find that your personnel expenses are your highest expense for running a practice. So it'll be interesting for you to work with these numbers and see how adding an employee affects your bottom line. So what we'll do here is we'll say that we are starting out very slowly with this new clinic. And in year one, we are just going to have one provider. And this provider is going to make $90,000. We will need a receptionist, and she will be full-time, and we're going to say that she's going to make $40,000. Again, you'll need to do some research about what salaries are in your general area and enter those in. So we're going to start out with no nursing support in year 1, but we are going to have a medical assistant. So we're going to pay her $45,000. And we will have an office manager who's going to be taking care of these things. If you're in a large practice, if you're starting a large practice, you may have several people that are taking care of these administrative functions. But we're going to have an administrator who's going to be spending some of her time with credentialing and human resources. So I'm going to attribute, say, half of her salary to administrative tasks. So I'm going to say that she's going to make $30,000 in administrative tasks and credentialing. She's going to make $20,000, and in human resources activities, she's going to make $10,000. You'll be needing to do your research on what FICA taxes are and what percentage you'll need to apply here, but you'll find that within the course. So then think about year 2. You know, maybe you're going to add a practitioner. Maybe you need to add nursing support in year 2 and that kind of thing. So year 2 may very well look different than year 1. Maybe some people will get raises, other people won't. So just kind of think about how that's going to work. And then all of these numbers with unemployment, workers' comp, health insurance, malpractice insurance, other, these will all need to be filled in. I am going to fill in a few numbers here just because I do want to show some expenses. So I'm going to say that we've got $20,000 in malpractice. And I'm going to say unemployment is going to be $5,000. Again, I'm just picking these numbers out of a hat, so you probably won't be wanting to use them in your project. Workers' comp, $2,000. Health insurance. I'm going to say that in year 1, I'm not going to offer health insurance, and that's an option. So I'm going to put a 0 in there. If you choose to do that, you do need to explain that over here in your justifications, why you chose not to have one of these categories in there. Life insurance, I'm not going to do that either. Retirement, I'm not going to do that first year. Licenses, yes, I will be helping with that. And professional membership and CEUs, I'll say yes. Okay, in the first year, let's about $1,000. Okay, so there we have our personnel expenses completed. The next tab is our equipment and furnishings, so, and durable goods, or these are durable goods. So what you need to do here, we have actually populated unit prices so you don't have to look them up, and they won't be exact, but they'll be pretty right on. So all you need to do is say, okay, I'm not going to choose any sofas or love seats, but I am going to choose 10 chairs, 2 end tables, and 2 lamps. And this is for the waiting room. We're not going to have a bookshelf in the waiting room. We will have a TV monitor and some pictures. All right. So then we're going to go down to the reception area and choose from our menu as well. One. Going to need a computer, a printer. We're going to get a copier, wastebasket, and we are not going to have bookshelves. So again, I'm just demonstrating that you can pick and choose what you need from these different offerings. Certainly we're going to need 1 exam table and a stool and a light and a little desk in that exam room, chair. All of this stuff we're going to need in the exam room. And a lot of these things we will need in our lab. Just going to start out with one office since we have one provider. We'll have a desk and a chair and a lamp and a computer and a file cabinet, and we will have bookshelves and a wastebasket. We're not going to have a classroom because we're starting as a new practice. We're going to have a very small space and we're not planning to offer classes. But if you are, you can choose from this menu. Staff kitchen, we're just going to have a few things. We'll have teapot and certainly a coffee pot. Can't do without that. And we'll have a microwave and a wastebasket and a refrigerator. That's it. So then we're going to go down to our equipment list and choose from that. And I'm just going to populate a few things in here, not get too detailed about this. I'm just randomly assigning some things. So you will need to give much more thought to what you actually need. Keep in mind these last items are very expensive items, but you may or may not be generating revenue by using them. So give that some thought. All right, so we're done with the equipment and furnishings spreadsheet. We're going to scroll over to the right here so we can see the next spreadsheet, which happens to be our expenses. And you'll see some numbers are already populated from previous spreadsheets. So the furniture total, startup equipment and furnishings, as well as the personnel sheets have populated into here. Let me go back. I just want to point out that, again, there are there's a justification box for what you needed here. And I don't think I talked about this either in the personnel sheet, that you need to fill out this justifications box describing how you came about the fact that you only needed one provider, what you based your salaries on, etc. So I just wanted to point that out. Whenever there's a box, a justification box, we do want you to fill that out. Okay, so back to the expenses tab. We do need to figure out some other expenses that we haven't thought about yet. And again, on the right, you have your justifications boxes where we want the details of where you found the information that you're basing your numbers on. So we've done some research. We have found that our rent, because we will be renting a space in the first year, will be $2,000 a month. So we're going to put that for the whole year, that's going to be $24,000. And for the whole year, based on what we project for monthly utilities from doing our research, we're going to say that that is going to be $8,000. Telephone will be $2,000. And these numbers are chosen out of a hat, which you will be basing your numbers on some research that you've done. Property taxes, we don't have any because we're renting. If you are purchasing a building, then you will certainly need to figure out what that would be as well. So we're going to say that we can use an average per visit cost of $5 for client care supplies. I'm going to say that I went back and figured out how many clients total that we saw, just to save time here. I'm not going to actually do that, but you will. And I'm going to say that our total charge will be $500. And so we need to figure out how much we're going to pay for the medications that we billed for. So we got the Rogam, we had the IUDs, and the Nexplanon. So I'm going to say that out of all of that, we are going to charge $20,000. And of course, you will have done your research, and that'll be much more specific. Office supplies, We can use an average visit cost. I actually meant for this to say $2. So if it says 5 in your spreadsheet, then change that to 2. Or if you find that it's something different upon your research, then just put that over in your justifications notes, okay? So we're gonna say that that's gonna be 8,000. All right, so comprehensive insurance is slip and fall insurance if someone gets hurt on your property. However, we're going to say that we've done some research and yeah, we've found out that that's going to be about $2,000 a year. The building and property insurance is covered by the landlord, so that's not something that you need to put in there if you're renting, but if you own your building, you will. Directors and officers insurance only applies to nonprofit organizations, and so you'll need to do some research on that. If you are a nonprofit, I'm going to say that we're not, and so billing service can be 8% of your revenue. So figure out what 8% of your revenue is. We can go back to our clinic revenue year 1 and take a look. So our revenue was 124,000. So 10% of that would be 12,000. I'm going to say 8% is 10,000. Not to take time to actually compute that. So I'm going to put 10,000 here. Now, if your office people do your billing in-house, then that figure may be different, maybe part of their salary. So just think about that. But a lot of people do outsource their billing, and the industry-wide standard is approximately 8% of your revenue. So you're going to go through here and you're going to fill out some other things about what things cost. So we're doing some home visits, so we certainly would want to apply some money to mileage, and we're going to say that that is $3,000. And then these other things here you may or may not have. If you do not have them, then list why over here, and as well as if you do, list where you obtained your source and what your logic was, how many square feet your building is, etc. How much space did you need and how did you figure that out? So then we have some numbers here. Our total expenses, $390,000, $393,000. Our last tab is the operating budget summary. This is also known as a balance sheet. And what this sheet does is it shows you your total bottom line, alrighty? So we're looking at our revenue initially at the top, and we're going to say that we think we're going to be pretty close with collecting our collecting everything that we bill for. But we do have some self-pay patients, and we have patients who have co-pays with their insurance. Maybe they show up at the window and they don't quite have that co-pay. So we're going to say that we have a 3% uncollectible revenue. Now, in your first year, that's just going to be a guess because you haven't even opened your practice yet. You don't know what your uncollectible revenue will be. But in year 2, you can actually look back on year 1 in real life and say, okay, we didn't collect 5% of what we billed for. And so you'll know that you need to build that into your budget. But for these purposes, you're just going to think about what that might be. And we're not a nonprofit, so we're actually not getting any grants and donations. We are, however, going to be getting a loan for starting a new practice, and we're going to say that that loan is going to be $100,000. So because we have a loan, we need to think about going back to our expenses tab. And back here was loan repayment. We're going to say, okay, we took out a $100,000 loan. In the first year, we're going to need to pay back $8,000 of that. All right. So if you take out a loan, you have to have something in your expenses tab to reflect that you have a loan repayment. All righty. So our total revenue, clinic services and other, for some reason is not populating. Look at that here for a second. So we can just add it up here manually because clinic services net revenue is $120,999, and we've got the other revenue here of $100,000. So we're going to say that our total revenue here is going to be $220,999. All right, there it is. So what we have done here is to build in a 5% margin of error for you. So just to be safe, when you're building any kind of budget, you want to build in a margin of error so that if you're not exactly right, you have a little bit of a safety net built in. So we can see that when you take the revenue and you subtract the expenses, we've got a revenue of 299 something minus the expenses of 300 or was it 290, I guess. No, 220,999 for our total revenue, and then subtracting $381,743 from that revenue number will give us a net income, and in this case, a loss. If it shows up in parentheses, it means that it's a loss of $160,744. Now keep in mind that the patient revenue utilization numbers that I entered in were very low. So yours are going to be much higher than that, and you'll be amazed at how much of a difference that will make. So you likely will have, many of you will have a loss in the first year and maybe even a loss in the second year. And that's okay. We are not evaluating your success with based on whether you have a gain or a loss. So just know that it's okay if you have a loss. We do want you, however, to explain over here in the justifications box how you think that you might overcome that loss as the years go by. How will you recover those losses, and how will you plan for future growth of financially of the organization and viability, because obviously you can't go year after year after year losing money. But many new businesses, whether it's a healthcare business or another kind of business, start out losing money. And so you have to kind of plan on that ahead of time. So that is what I wanted to show you with these revenue spreadsheets. And again, if you get into a bind, we don't want you to sit for hours and hours on one little spot. Please let us know so that we can help you. We want you to succeed with this assignment. So good luck, everyone, and we look forward to seeing what you come up with. All right.